Here's a slide full of common living species we see in Chennai. These, how many of you can recognize these with their specific names? If we can have a show of hands, please. More than 5 of them. More than 5 of them. More than 10 of them. More than 15 or all of them. Now here's a slide full of some other things. Now, how many of you can identify these? More than 5, yeah. Yeah, all of them, yeah. Now, I'm a nature educator and I'm deeply interested in how we live our lives, which makes us so fluent with the brand logos and often unaware of the common living species we share our lives with and often owe our lives to. Here's a picture of my nature educator colleagues and I conducting a session at the Urur Kuppam beach in Chennai. This is part of a 10-month program for children of Urur and Alcott Kuppam, 2 fishing villages, where we emplace the coast as a rich living learning space. Children observe, study, journal the coastal biodiversity, winds, tides, currents, local practices, fishing knowledge, and so on. This is the syllabus. And towards the end of it, we found that children's science and language learning had steeply increased. And more importantly, their intrinsic motivation to be curious, to learn just about anything, increased, along with developing a deep connection with their native home beach. This was not the first time I was witnessing this, of course. I've been a nature educator for the past 12 years, starting from when I was 16. Here's a picture of a scrawny 17-year-old me. I was staying and studying at a campus called Patashala under the Krishnamurti Foundation. And the first thing I did there was to conduct local biodiversity-based programs for 3 government schools in the neighborhood. There, the trees around, birds, butterflies, snakes, the lakeside, crop fields, this was the syllabus. And we engaged with it through the months. And there too, by the end of it, children's academic performance in school increased because of this. And more interestingly, so-called dull children's excitement and participation to learn increased, and the teachers' feedback reflected this as well. Yeah. Now, obviously, these are not my own anecdotes or findings. Right now, it's a worldwide, well-researched phenomenon that local nature-based learning is essential for children's learning and well-being, or just about anybody's. In 2019, Professor Ming Kuo from Illinois University put together nearly 100 studies from across the world showing how nature-based learning works far better than traditional classroom instruction. Other social science researchers like Andrea Faber-Taylor showed how this is especially true for children from socioeconomically vulnerable backgrounds, for whom nature education can actually be a powerful equalizing force. This is one part of the conversation. On the other hand, we have climate scientists like Eugene Cordero and the scientists at Project Drawdown, which is supposed to be one of the largest climate think tanks in the world, saying that if we tap into the potential of education, it has far greater capacity to deal with the climate crisis than if we merely moved our energy source from fossil fuels to renewables, while retaining the same patterns of living and connecting and relating with our local living world. And we need to think about why this might be so. So nature education, good nature education, can radically transform our culture in 2 main ways. One is that it deeply improves children as well as anybody's learning and well-being. And secondly, it socially and emotionally connects us with our local living world. Connects us, which means a banyan tree being cut down the street or a lake being concretized, covered up, encroached, is not merely a statistic we read on newspaper, but a blow to our heart. That is connection. In March 2020, India's oldest bird sanctuary, Vedandangal Bird Sanctuary, was threatened. A large pharmaceutical company was functioning there illegally already, polluting the waters there, poisoning and causing bird deaths, creating diseases in the farmer communities, and now they wanted to expand during the lockdown. In all the previous years, I had been taking children from Abacus Montessori School to the bird sanctuary during monsoons to see the tens of thousands of birds which come there to nest. And children had developed a deep emotional connection with the place. And when they heard this news, they came back to me and said, we want to do something. And I said, okay, it's lockdown. Can you make powerful art for the bird sanctuary? We'll put it up in places. Let's see if it can invoke public action. So children across the school started making art for the Save Vedandangal campaign. Other nature educators with their own schools and children started doing this too. And soon the children's art storm for Vedandangal was covered literally by every single newspaper. It turned thousands of heads and voices towards the issue. Numerous more youth groups like Chennai Climate Action Group took this cause up and fought for it. Cases were filed in court. The pharmaceutical companies' plans to expand were quashed. In 2022 came an order. In 2022 came a government order saying this bird sanctuary will be protected forever. That is a cultural shift, where children and people saw nesting water birds as their own kin and chose to stand up for and fight for it. Yeah. Culture is what we all feel strongly about and maybe don't feel strongly about. It is what we aspire for, dream of, what we want to work for. It is also what names we speak and is alive in our conversations and daily speech. What things we can recognize and identify daily and don't. Culture is also what we choose to stand up for, fight for. That is important. Economist Jason Hickel said, one of the strongest drivers of climate change is inequalities we find in our society, embedded in our cultural belief systems. I want to say that climate change is a cultural issue, emerging from our patterns of connecting and relating, perceiving with our local living world. Here are what are called Earth system boundaries. Now, if we want to assess our body's health, we would check our temperature, blood pressure, and so on. A large group of scientists from the Earth Commission asked, if we want to check the health of living systems on the planet, what would we measure? And then they came up with these 8 measures. And each of them have thresholds of safety and justice, which we should not cross. Climate is just one of them. And look at where we are with respect to all of them and their thresholds. Climate is pretty close, but look at where we are with respect to the biosphere's functional integrity, which is literally how much life and interconnectedness we have on the planet. Where we are with our water systems, our chemical flows, nitrogen, phosphorus, and so on. So this is all an entangled whole. And the crisis is really not just climate, but a broader perspective is the crisis is a diminishing of life and living conditions. It's not merely a carbon issue to be techno-fixed. Maybe the most sensible way then to approach this and heal this is to profoundly respect our living world and emplace ourselves in it and connect with it in a way which has not been done before. Our culture can be shaped, we shape our culture throughout our lifespans, but most crucially during 2 periods, that is childhood and adolescence, the most formative periods in our lives. The experiences, worldviews, values, belief systems imbibed during this time, we can safely say strongly determines our collective future. I run an internship for 3 colleges in Chennai through the Madras Naturalist Society called Urban Wilderness Walks. And the intention of this internship is to train young life science students into becoming powerful nature educators in Chennai's landscape and waterscape. Through the course, they study their local living world and ongoingly engage people in their neighborhood meaningfully to connect with nature. At the end of this internship, many of these amazing young people went on to become so active with the nature education and conservation scene, it gave me the impetus to start Palluyir Trust for Nature Education and Research. Palluyir means all of life, through which we also run the coastal program you saw earlier, along with a range of other resources and materials we make for this landscape and waterscape which we are part of. Right now, we are working with the Greater Chennai Corporation and dreaming towards the possibility of making local nature-based learning there for all children in Chennai, maybe later in the state. For this, we have chosen public parks which have enough biodiversity in them, and we are conducting programs throughout the year for schools nearby. And while doing so, we are keenly studying what impact and benefit this has on children. This is possibly one of the first times this is being done in India, and later this will help us make a larger policy intervention. The pedagogy we use, pedagogy means how we learn what we learn, how we teach what we teach, is different from what is usually followed in school. Ours is called action pedagogy. Now, it's based on a very simple fact, the action pedagogy, is that awareness does not create action. A practice of action creates action. To unpack that a bit, the void between ignorance and knowledge is really small compared to the void between knowledge and action. A lot of very good research around the world supports this, including that of psychologist Louis Chawla, whose life work has been, what does it take for the individual to experience, to be action takers, change makers through their lives? Awareness is such a small thing in that whole gamut of factors involved. Distilling from this as well as our own experience as educators, we have given 3 pillars for our action pedagogy. The first is direct action and participation in any kind of learning. The second is local relevance in any kind of learning, the local being really the arena of action for anybody. And the last being interconnectedness across fields, topics, the social, political, ecological, all unsiloed, put together, interconnectedness. Now, I am deeply confident that if people, young or not, experience connecting with the local living world on a daily basis, it can radically transform our culture into an eco-centric one. It could perhaps heal us from the climate crisis, the life crisis. Right now, that healing so distant and difficult to imagine. But for that, we need a profound and maybe never before existent connection with our local nature, local living world. My nature educator colleagues and I practice this daily, take it to people, children daily, and imagine this daily. And maybe, just maybe, because it can be imagined, like so many other things in the world, it is not far from being done. Thank you.